Hello and welcome to the EOK podcast. Today is January 8th, 2014. This is our first podcast of the new year. And today we will be talking about planning. It's a good time to talk about that. We want to plan for 2014, and we also want to look at what's involved with planning as we go forward. Our guest today is Mr. Taryn. And Taryn is with Gridwell Associates?
Just Gridwell.
Just Gridwell. And what's the website?
It's gridwell.co.
Gridwell.co, if you want to check these guys out. And they are changing the whole scope of Knoxville, of churches and government and private entity all working together to make the world a better place. It's going to be great, right? Yes.
Yeah.
And Colin is here too. Hey, Colin,
yes.
Thanks for being here. Colin's going to be taking some notes and firing off some questions. Colin is also with Gridwell. Today, I would like to thank our wonderful sponsors for providing the space that we're in and the bandwidth that we're using to stream to you guys out there in the internet world. Pershing Yokelin Associates, for any of your business consulting or accounting needs, check them out online, pyapc.com. And also, I would like to thank Robinson IP Law. Robbie Robinson is a member of EOK, has been for a very long time. For any of your intellectual property needs, if you need copyright, trademark, patents, check out robinsoniplaw.com. And I would like to thank our sponsors, Neighborhood Nerds, online at shnerd.com, shnerd.com. They provide technical support, computer consulting, technology consulting for a small monthly fee. So if you need help with your phone systems, your digital advertising, your website, your social media, whatever, these guys can take care of it. So just check them out online at shnerd.com. So let's get rolling. We're talking about planning and what all is involved with that. It's a daunting task sometimes. One of the things that I've noticed about planning is you have to sit down. You're kind of thinking of, you get these ideas in your head of like what you need to do maybe tomorrow or this week or next month. But if you really want to have like a vision of where you're going, you almost have to do these visioning kind of meetings where you look at where do I want to be in 5 years? And if you just open up your mind and imagine and say, okay, in 5 years, this is where I want my company to be. I want to have 3 different offices around the Southeast. I want to have 10 employees in each office. I need all of the structure necessary for that, the infrastructure to support that, the clients that are necessary for that. All of that is what you look out there and say, that's where I'm going to be in 5 years. And then if you start backing that up to 3 years and then 1 year, and then you get down to this weekly and monthly kind of activities you have to be taking to make that happen. I've been in some visioning meetings that have been incredible about that. Like everybody, no holds barred, just everybody, it's wide open. We're brainstorming. We've got a whiteboard on the wall here, and we're just like scribbling notes as fast as we can. What do you want it to look like? What is it in your mind? What does Entrepreneurs of Knoxville look like in 5 years? And it was incredible whenever we did that, because we saw people saying, we want chapters across the United States in 5 years, so that when you drop into a city while you're out traveling, there's a chapter you can go visit. We want a micro-lending fund in each chapter. We want all the chapters to be able to combine those funds. We want access to those resources that are in those chapters. We want health care. We want, like all of these things that would be part of this big picture of what EOK is, which was strange for me to watch the board members do that whenever I'm thinking, we're meeting once a month and hanging out and kind of brainstorming together, and imagine it being that kind of organization. But that's how it starts. You got to have some kind of vision and target to head that direction. Taryn, tell us a little bit about what you and Gridwell, like I know you guys are doing lots of planning. You're involving lots of moving parts and then trying to keep everybody on the same page as you move forward.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we do actually, that's just one of our projects that you mentioned. A lot of what we do is actually applying a system thinking perspective to helping different organizations to basically improve and do what they do better. And so obviously planning kind of comes into a lot of that. You know, and just to say too, one thing, I get a little nervous talking with people, you know, more than 3 or 4 people at a time. So
do I. I get a little nervous.
Brought one of our interns along to kind of help out a little bit, get me unstuck from time to time. And one of the things that we do in our office, just to kind of help ease communication, is a little process called discovery listening that a guy named Dallas Demmett built. Basically, it's just periodically, Colin or one of you guys just pause me and say, hey, I want to make sure that I'm hearing what you're trying to communicate, because sometimes the message that we're trying to say doesn't necessarily come through, and we're hearing something different than what somebody's actually trying to say. So Colin will do that from time to time, and if you feel free to do that as well. Just pause me and say, hey, I want to make sure I'm getting what you're trying to say. So, yeah, I would say one of the interesting things about planning, though, is not just, we tend to think about it just as a next step that's kind of outside of what's urgent, because you get stuck in a lot of times day to day and just what have we got going on right now that's one crisis or another, or this fire I got to put out, or I've got to deal with these other things. Planning helps give you perspective so that you can look towards those longer range goals and things like what Leo was talking about. But one of the things that I've found in doing that is, whether it's nonprofit, whether it's for-profit, it's directly tied not just to what you want to accomplish, but really what your whole purpose for being in the business or the organization that you are. So, one of the things that I would ask here would be, what kind of businesses do you guys run?
We have accounting company. We have Midas Auto Repair, Fair Mechanics Software, the IT shop. What are some other businesses? Recruiting. And other businesses. Jim, you're doing problem solving on all levels, up to government level and power consumption. A little bit of everything.
Elderly abuse. You got a problem, we work on it.
All right. So I would say, a lot of times when we think about planning, we're thinking about like, how are we going to grow our business? But realistically speaking, what you're actually thinking about in those times is not just how you grow your business, but it's how are you impacting the world? Because we get caught in this loop sometimes of, I'm thinking about, okay, what's my plan for doing these things? And we get into the real task level. But that's not what gets you out of bed in the morning. It's not the problem that you're actually solving by bringing your business to the table. You think about any organization that's out there, any product that's on the market, you could really ask the question of how are they making money? Anything that's made money in the last year, last 5 years, you could ask the question of how are they changing the world? And that's really kind of something that's got more to do with the identity of your organization. And so the reason I bring that up in the context of planning is that how you plan, if it's a really good plan that's really going to position you well, it's going to come out of who you are. It's going to reflect who you are. So that's...
And something that's been helpful to me is to have, like the EOK members, people that aren't even knowledgeable of exactly what it is that you do. So, because I think the message gets a little confusing sometimes when you're in it so much. You explain yourself one way, you're thinking about yourself one way, but you really need to involve your customers, your vendors, your team members. Everybody needs to have a voice of who you really are. So you're describing your company, what you really provide, what you really do, in a way that's more of this like 360-degree view of who you are and what you do. I think you can use EOK for that. You can leverage this group to come in here and get up front and tell the group what it is you do and where you want to be, and then hear from all of us that have been there, done that, to kind of guide you through, well, you say that you fix cars, and you say that your target customer is this. And then some of your problems are hiring, the right personnel. Maybe it's finding those new customers. How do you, can you leave the business? Like if you're an accountant, can you leave the business to someone else that can run it if you take a small vacation? I mean, there's a lot of companies that we have that revolve around us. So if we're not there, it's not working. So you need to look at that and say, okay, how can I leverage strategic partnerships maybe? Maybe there's others that can complement me. And that needs to be part of that plan, like where you're going and how you're going to get there. You got to have the timing and the financial, those strategic partnerships. And I think you need to have life in there too. Is this going to be enjoyable somehow? And then what impact are you having? Like, are you changing the world, or are you just, I know we all go into things to make money, but there is some other reason that's inside us for making this thing, building this new business, this new company.
So what are you guys hearing so far? Anybody want to take a crack at just kind of repeating back what you're hearing? Colin, what are you hearing?
Yeah, look at Colin. Colin, that's what your job is. You're supposed to.
Well, I'm hearing there's short-term and long-term. What I just heard Leah say was that you also got to think about strategic planning and alliances and friendships. It's more than just the task. It's the life within. It's the people that goes into planning. Very general. It's kind of not sure.
And the other thing that I've seen a lot of guys struggle with is just the where do you put the plan? I mean, is the plan physically a document that's written down somewhere that everybody can reference? Is it online in Google Drive, Google Docs? Is it like a real, huge thing that's in some kind of business plan management system that's online so that you can see all the pieces and parts? And we've all struggled with that too, whenever you're building that thing so that you can effectively communicate it to the rest of the company. I think a big part of it is you have to have that manager that's going to be above that firefighting and that day-to-day activity that can look at it from up here going, okay, are we still on track? Do we have enough money to make it to where we're going next? Do we have the resources to get there? Have we met these milestones that we set in order to accomplish those goals and objectives that we have out there in the future? Because it's so easy to get in the middle of your startup and forget about those goals and objectives. And you don't realize it until you have a meeting saying, we're out of money and we have a lot of things we need to do. I keep looking at Carlos because we've recently had this discussion. You can learn a lot from Carlos and I in our startup. What not to do. So something that we've used Google Drive and Google Docs. Google Drive, Google Docs is easy to collaborate. It's easy to share that information. We build it in multiple sections so that there's a financial section, there's marketing, there's the actual business plan section, there's sales sections, and those are different documents that all come together to make that overall plan. We haven't planned out to that 5-year mark. We're planning like in these 1-year plans. And I kind of think that's okay for what we're doing with the software startup, because it's difficult to project out past that anyway. I mean, you don't know how technology is going to change. The competitors come on the market so quickly, exits change so quickly in the software startup business that it's difficult to plan out past that 12-month, 18-month kind of period. But you have to have discipline to actually go back and look at that plan as you're building it. Some of the things that we did, we sat down and we had our meeting with our advisory board, and we're talking about where we want to go, and how we want to get there. So we're talking about money, we're talking about marketing, we're talking about sales, we're talking about exits and business relationships and strategic relationships, and you're kind of putting all of that stuff on a whiteboard and saying, okay, here's all the things we need to do, And you have to then build those smaller incremental steps to get there. We write those into the document, to build that plan, which the plan not only works for us, it also works whenever we're explaining it to potential investors or explaining it to strategic partners, so that we say the same message over and over again to everyone. What I've noticed, I'm very bad at this, is actually after getting that plan built in that document, I am bad about working inside the company again. So I'm not good at stepping back and staying above it and keeping an eye on that we are meeting those goals. And I think that's just discipline. You have to set those meetings that you are going to periodically sit down and say, okay, where are we? Let's look at, what our burn rate is, our milestones, our accomplishments, what have we checked off so far? And you either have to have a person, a resource that's responsible for that, or you just have to be disciplined to sit down and say, periodically, we're going to do that.
The plan that you're talking about is your internal mission statement, goals. You said, did you have to have a business plan that you actually took to somebody and said, we need money for, or the business plan that had to be in a certain fashion that would actually get you money?
We have not had to do that. With Neighborhood Nerds, I'm building more of a plan for it that is for that kind of purpose, to show other people outside of the organization, to say, this is what Neighborhood Nerds is, here's the projections, here's where we think we'll be making money. For the software startup, we've done more of a slideshow presentation to people. We've shown it to them and said, this is what we're wanting to do, here's where we're going, here's where we are today, and here's how we're going to get there. So it hasn't been a written business plan document like you would think a business plan document to present to someone. It's been a very short overview of the company. It's like 4 or 5 pages, and then a presentation that we would do. So we do the presentation, we walk through it in front of the investors or a group of investors, if it's in a meeting room, and then we let them leave with this little short document that's something that's engaging and shows them all of those numbers and figures that we talked about, and the relationships that we talked about.
Has technology gone in that direction as far as actually presenting a business plan that you have to do sort of a...
Well, I think that it's just that I think people are just being more honest, that they don't read those great big, 30-page business plans anyway. So I think they're looking at it, and they're looking at those shorter documents, they're looking at the team, and if they have a feel for the team, and they think these guys can execute and knock out what they say they're going to knock out, that's what sells it more than the business plan.
Would you say that's on all levels, the funding?
If you get up to VC, even angel, like if you're talking to an individual investor, it is very much that relationship. It is what their feel is about you as a person. If they want to work with you, if they like you, and then they're looking at your plan to say, has he thought about or she thought about everything that's or most of the things that are out there. Do they know who their customer is? Do they know how they're going to talk to their customer? Do they know who their competitors are? Do they know what their price point is in the marketplace? Have they identified some potential exits? When they see that and they get a feel for you and maybe some of your accomplishments, and they look at your team, that the weaknesses you have, you filled in with other team members that have those skill sets that you're missing, then they feel pretty comfortable about that. When you move up to a little more organized investing, like an angel network of investors, they're going to do a little more due diligence. They're going to require a little more of you. They're going to do background checks and credit checks and, really check out these numbers that you say you've done before they would consider giving you any money. When you move up to that VC level, they're going to not only do that kind of stuff, but they're also going to say, we're going to control a big portion of it. So they're going to put people in place that will make sure you succeed. They're also going to rewrite a lot of your documentation about the investments that they get preferential treatment on the investments. You know, they're going to get their money out first. They're going to have different multipliers, like if, you know, if it's some kind of, you know, they don't really have an idea of what the valuation is yet. They're going to structure the deal so that they have some protection if the valuation changes in a negative manner as you go forward. So it's going to be a little more, it's going to get much more business-like, less personal, and much more cut and dry. The numbers speak for themselves kind of relationship as you go up.
So clearly, I mean, there's a number of different types of plans that exist. You know, your business plan type being more for your startup, your first year kind of, hey, this is basically proving to you that this is an investment-worthy opportunity here. Then there's your strategic plan, which is, you know, a lot more your 3 to 5 year kind of outlook. You know, it's more about future casting and, you know, vision casting and things like that, and kind of really setting a course and a path for yourself to actually accomplish the things that you need to do to grow the business. Then there's your typical work plan, you know, which is type of the 1 year, real kind of nitty-gritty to do. This is how we're going to get from A to B in our strategic plan over the next year. You know, things like that.
And how does that get communicated to you? Like, I see you guys work together in those visioning meetings and the planning meetings, and, you know, lots of Post-it notes stuck on the wall, lots of drawings, you know, sketched out with plans and timelines and multiple resources all working together to get, you know, meet these goals and objectives. How does that get communicated to everybody? Like, do you get like a packet that's yours for your specific tasks? Do you have online task management?
We do use online task management. Yeah, we use a program called Asana. I believe it's free, and we use that to be able to keep track of not just our tasks, but who's covering what tasks, follow other tasks. We can group them by buckets and subtasks and things like that. It's actually a very useful tool when you actually get down to the task level of executing your plan. For the actual planning process itself, you know, we find a number of different mind mapping tools to be very helpful. I know there's software out there that exists to do more in-depth type strategic plans, but to me, some of the key things to keep in mind are kind of the basic elements of just what is a strategic plan. Mm-hmm. I mean, how many of you have actually been actively engaged in a strategic planning process?
Could you repeat that? I didn't hear.
How many of you have actually been engaged in a strategic planning process?
A couple. 3.
About half of you. You know, there's a number of different ways that you can go about doing those types of things. There's a couple of different methods, and you can read whole books on this stuff. But for me, some of the things that, and this is where I was going earlier with the whole talking about identity and talking about why is it that you do what you do. Those things, because what can happen as you're building a strategic plan is there can be misalignment over time, where you can begin to have that vision drift and value drift, mission drift, that kind of thing. But a well-done strategic plan allows you to pay attention to what your values and your mission is of your organization and plan from that, as opposed to just planning based around the tasks that you think you need or the next cool idea that you think you want to pursue. And so I would, what I typically do is look at outcomes first instead of just outputs. Outputs being, you know, what are the quantitative type things, the measurables, you know, we know we want to be in X number of cities, or we know we want to have X number of clients, so what are we going to do that? That's typically where a lot of people start in the strategic planning process, is more of an output-based mentality. But if you start with outcomes, which is a lot more qualitative, and that's kind of more kind of the things that you want to see of your organization in the next 3 years. So those are kind of statements that you would make that are kind of present tense kind of deal. So like, you know, 2016, you know, our company is positioned as a thought leader in our area of expertise. You know, that would be an example of an outcome. Then you kind of start to back into things that are a little bit more quantitative and things that are a bit more of a linear process. So you can take, if you've got a number of outcomes, you might be able to pick a couple of high leverage goals, which would be kind of like, how many of these outcomes could we hit with one particular goal that we want to achieve? And then you from there kind of backing in through your strategies, which are kind of specific what is it that I'm going to do to meet this goal, and kind of your tasks and your tactics kind of come into that with your how do I get from A to B, and you kind of backtrack yourself so that at the end of the day, when you're looking down at the task level of stuff, you should be able to track it all the way back to your goals and your outcomes, so that everything that you're doing at the task level is actually a reflection of your mission, your values, and really the impact you're wanting to have. So that's kind of where I would go with that.
So what I heard you say is that outcomes within a business are more qualitative, whereas outputs are quantitative, and that in the process of your strategic plan and looking at internally, you want to start with more of the qualitative outcomes and then narrow down into more of the quantitative output, more details. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. The one difference that I don't think I actually did say was that the outputs come more at the end with your metrics and things like that. So you'll be able to kind of look more into, if we're going to get from A to B, then that's where things like you see that with like your typical sales generation leads. I need so many leads, so I need to make so many calls. So that's more of your driving metrics, which will kind of keep you on the path of your plan.
Yeah, which I think that's how I think more, is that like a sales funnel kind of thing. Like you crunch it down to numbers and you say, if I make 100 calls and I get 10 that I turn into leads and then close one of those, so I know if I want to grow by 10 clients, I need to make 1,000 calls, something like that.
Right, and I would say that typically it's really easy. That's where our kind of default mentality is to go to. Well, I want X number of things, so I've got to go with my outputs. And I'm saying if you actually go back and look at your outcomes first, you'll still get those outputs that you'll naturally jump to, but you'll find a lot of stuff that creatively comes out for your business that you wouldn't have arrived at just thinking about just the typical outputs that drive the day-to-day stuff that you typically deal with.
So what are some of those goals like that you would set for the different businesses that we're talking about in here? Like, what are you wanting to accomplish, Catherine? Where do you want to see your company? Like, do you have an idea of where your accounting firm needs to be? Like, are you heading towards a PYA size?
No.
Okay.
No, my goal is X dollars in revenues. I obviously have as an accountant, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you I had a dollar amount. But, we want to move towards, for example, when we first started, the way you get easy work in is taxes, and taxes made up 85% of our revenues. Since that first tax season, I have been, because I'm the only owner, moving that number to where now tax revenue makes up less than 40% of our total revenues, but each year those dollars have grown. And payroll and bookkeeping and what we call the repetitive services, or what I call repetitive services, I want to make up a minimum of 60% of the business, because it's better than working 100 hours from January to April 15th, stroking and dying young, versus continual smoothing out of payments. I know where I picture the staffing come from. It's built intentionally with women or accountants who start part-time and build to full-time so the firm can grow with it. Our model will always be where we're like the old-fashioned doctor who goes to the client as our primary model of business, that virtually, rather than big offices. And then ultimately is to sell the business and retire. That's one part of my retirement, is to sell the business and fund the sale of the business as well. So I spent a lot of time thinking about it because I'm only 21 years from my retirement goal of 75. And for those of you who are young in the room, do not laugh, because you will be working till 80.
So qualitative, like the description we were talking about, you want to be that leader in...
We want to be known as the accountant to the entrepreneurial community. We are startups. That's when they get large, we want to hand them off to the Pershing Oakleys and the firms that are a better fit for them. But we do not want to deal with the routine mundane of a company that's hit this point and they're kind of stable. We want to work with a startup. Most of our clients are in the first 5 to 10 years of their business life. And so qualitatively, that's how I would define it.
I was thinking as you were saying that, because I kind of smiled because Neighborhood Nerds, we were thinking the same thing with the small businesses. Like we want to work with small businesses that are 3 to 5 kinds of workstations and have these needs of they can't really afford to do the kind of website, social media, point of sale systems that might be turnkey from some larger organization, but we can just consult them on that. And then we would migrate them as they got larger to a different firm that we've partnered with. And it's just not working that way because they don't want to leave. So now we've got a customer that has 40 employees, has multiple servers, they have encryption and all of these issues that they require one of our guys to be there 3 days a week, on site. And they're paying for it, but it's like, that's not in our model, but I'm not sure what to do about it because they love us.
I struggle with that same thing, but I very much compare it to raising a child. And you and I are kind of in the same family stage. We both have high schoolers. We hope to launch someday to go to college. There's a reason that they're so miserable during the teenage years, so you can send them to college and not feel bad. But it's a little
They
bit
create that desire to.
Right. God in His infinite. But clients are kind of the same way. And so we actually, when you talk about qualitative, we came up with just between talking with my staff over the years and the clients, we actually are starting to transition those clients as they reach that point. We're helping to launch them. Just like when your child's a freshman, you might still monitor some things, but I would argue that your child hits his senior year or her senior year, if you're still micromanaging, then your child is headed for failure when they get to college because, let's face it, you ain't there to wake them up. And so that's one of the new goals we've started working on with clients is we constantly talk about as they are maturing that transition and what pieces we transition, and we've identified what makes the most sense in that order. And it's worked well with 1 or 2. We tried it with a total of about 3. 1 has gone kicking and screaming and uncooperatively, but the other 2, are making it. But we just qualitatively, when people think of accountants or accounting and entrepreneurs, we want to be the first place they think of. And I try to brand that personality-wise. I constantly say I suck at being an employee because that is part of the way my clients relate and appreciate because they do too. So it's a challenge though because I don't know about you, but I look at dollars and I say, I could do this project and get these dollars. And especially in the first few years, the first 3 years, it was very hard to say no to work that was outside of, really what our target was.
Yeah.
Now it's easier, but
That should be a big part of that plan is that core competency, this, what do we want to do? So you're removing those that aren't in your sites? you know?
But cash is king.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I don't have a single business owner that looks at his plan and says, I'm going to intentionally divert from this. But they look at that plan and they say, but if I do this, I can bring in an extra $50,000, and right now I need that 50K. Especially the last several years, because let's face it, banks didn't lend any money. They're just now starting to loosen up a little bit. So we call it the emergency backup plan.
Well, then I see, like your business then, if you are backing up and say, I want to focus on entrepreneurs, then you're looking at a kind of a risky market also. That's your
Yes.
target client.
Yes, hence the payroll and the bookkeeping. to
So
help
then you have to
us.
say, how many of them are even going to be around to pay their bills after this much time?
Well, surprisingly, we've had very few close. That must be our brilliant work.
That's right. You're making the difference.
But I will tell you that we came up with the idea because we identified a gap. And, that's why we went for it.
Yeah.
Because we felt like it would be very profitable despite the risk, because there really aren't many firms that can fill that gap adequately at a cost-effective price.
Mhm.
So,
Well, I guess that, like the whole qualitative kind of description of where you want to be and what you want to look like to the rest of the world, it makes me think of that, which we all love that video, the Simon Sinek, Start with the Why, because it really is that emotional side that connects you to your clients of why you do this. What do you want to be known as, and how do people talk about you, that kind of stuff.
I definitely think that's where your passion comes from.
And then recruiting, how do you see your business, like what do you want people to say about your company?
Yeah, so we claim recruiting if we have to choose an industry, but when we think about qualitative or big picture, our goal is really to create a movement that encourages the American workplace to evolve to match the demands of kind of the modern family. So we do recruiting, but really only for employers who wish to use flexibility as a means to recruit talent. So those are flexible, part-time, or work from home, full-time, unconventional schedules, and that's largely for organizations that are growing. But we step back and say, like, qualitatively, 5 years, what is kind of the big plan? It's really to kind of kickstart a whole movement to really encourage employers to think about what a traditional work schedule would be and the opportunities that you have to capture better talent more affordably if you use flexibility as part of a total compensation package.
Mm-hmm.
But, recruiting is one aspect of that, but there are others. So we know that and try to think about that thing. Qualitatively, the biggest picture is to see the American employer consider schedules other than Monday through Friday, 8 to 6.
Is there a lot of education that has to take place there with employers right now?
There certainly is. I mean, right now we're really working with employers that are forward thinking. And so there's a whole shift in mindset that has to happen with a traditional employer to really get them to see the value in using some sort of flexibility. And most employers aren't familiar with that. So we do get a lot of education that has to happen with employers for sure.
That was very frustrating to me. And I know if any of you have read that 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss's book, he talks in there about that, like his first job, he's going in and he's knocking out, he's outperforming everyone in the first couple of hours in the morning. And he didn't understand why he has to work, an 8-hour day or a 10-hour day, when he's outpacing everyone in that first couple of hours in the morning. And his employer was like, but think how much more you could do if you worked the entire 8 or 10-hour day. And it was just like this crazy mindset that we're just stuck in. It's like that's what it means to be an employer and an employee.
Right. Well, I mean, the truth is, everybody would agree that familial roles have changed. Right? There's more women that are graduating college today than there are men. And the last I heard, we're still solely responsible for childbirth. And with advancements in science, who knows what happened next? But yeah, the truth is that familial roles have changed. There's a lot of two-parent working homes now. Women are more educated to have people are waiting till later in life to our grandparents or great-grandparents, the kind of traditional American work schedule has not. You know, if I were to ask my great-grandparents what family meant to them, it would be nothing like what most of us in this room would define family meaning. However, if I asked them, when do you work? They would say Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, most likely. And that's what most employers are still looking for today. So we realize we've got a huge mission, but we think we're up for the challenge anyways.
Yeah, and where does that come from? I mean, is that just a control kind of thing, or is it just ingrained that that's what it means to be an employee and an employer? Because I look at now like outsourcing, and I outsource a lot of stuff to get done, and I don't care where the person is, when they're doing it, how they do it, as long as that box gets checked that that thing got done, you know, that I asked them to do. And they're phenomenal at it.
Yeah, you're so right. And if you really think about flexibility as a means of compensation, the same way that you would think about a health care plan or a 401 or retirement package, and if you monetize the value in that, you'll see that, you know, these women, and most of our candidates are women, really understand the value of that as compensation. So, you know, if you're willing to let somebody work flexible hours from home versus coming into the office Monday through Friday, we can get you the same candidate with the same type of qualifications and educational background, and a lot of times 60 to 80% of what you're paying to have somebody in office. And it's somebody who really wants to stay with you. They value the flexibility that you're giving them. And that's not always true for a candidate who's just coming into the office Monday through Friday because that's what they have to do, and they're wasting your time, they're wasting your payroll hours. So there is an alternative, but...
And I think those people sit and stare at the clock too. You know, it's like, okay, I got to put in my 8 hours or whatever, and they're just waiting for the day to end instead of exciting. You know? I want them to be excited to be there and happy and getting their stuff done, you know, like just loving it. I wonder if an employer also, whenever you start crunching the numbers, and you say, I'm paying this person $40,000 a year to do this function, but they work 6 hours a week, and then you start going, well, good Lord, I'm paying, you know, this much an hour, you know, if that like freaks some of these employers out, like, well, I can't pay somebody that much an hour.
I do think it comes down to industry. I have some industries, you know, clients in different industries that they're fine. They're paying for you to get the job done. And they do tend to be more technology, professional types of things. But when you look at their overall strategic model or plan, you know, it isn't built into their planning. It's an exception because they just love Fred or Susan as their employee and they're great. But, you know, Courtney's working with me to fill some of my positions. And I've got clients, I said, hey, you need to talk to Courtney, you know, you need to expand your business and you want to have a salesperson, and this is part of her evolution too. But they're immediately thinking, well, I can't have a commissioned salesperson unless they work 40 hours a week. It's like, why? They're on commission.
Right.
I mean, I know in my early career before I felt like I could start a business and make the kind of money that I wanted to or needed to, if somebody had said to me, I'm paying you to get the job done, if you get a job in 4 hours, you still get the same amount of money, I would have been much more stinking motivated than to tell me your hours are this, even if you paid me 3 times as much. Because to me, it's not about the time. You know, if I work 100 hours a week or I work 10 hours a week, I'm doing the job because of the intrinsic kinds of things. Pay is how I measure my value to you compared to everyone else in the organization. But if I'm not more highly valued than the rest, but I'm producing more than the rest or putting forth more effort, screw you, I'm out of there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I have a lot of clients who are struggling. Everyone says, oh, I need to hire someone, I don't know what to do. But you mention a different idea, and I'm like, okay, well, how do you plan to get from here to 30 employees? You don't, well, I have to have enough sales to pay for someone to get more sales. Why?
Right.
Why not rethink your long-term plan and say, I'm going to pay someone to produce whatever production is and pay them that way?
Mhm.
In my mind, I think manufacturing gets that more than anything else, because manufacturing has paid line workers to produce or buy production. You know, so, I don't know, but strategically, I'm really having a hard time getting clients to think outside of the normal box, because they want to do what everybody else did. Open up the plant and just hire people full-time, one at a time, and I don't think that model works. And certainly when the economy crashes again, and it will, it doesn't work either.
Now, I noticed that we do something, one of the mistakes we make is we have a plan that we all read and think, man, that's a pretty plan, and it sounds so good, and we're gonna be there, and that's gorgeous. And then the tasks don't line up with executing that plan somehow. It's like, I don't know if it's like we don't trust the plan or the system, or if we just didn't think about it properly, or, you know, or it's just firefighting, like there's things that didn't come up in the planning process, or maybe it just happens all the time. You have to be willing to constantly be massaging the plan too.
Well, I mean, even the best plans, you're always going to have to, you should be continually revisiting them on a periodic basis, because plans are going to change, circumstances are going to change, and that's why if you start with outcomes and doing goals and strategies, by the time you're down into the real meat of it, the stuff that's your A to B, here's how I'm going to get there kind of stuff, that's the stuff that's really going to be the most likely to change. And as long as you've got your strategies that are tied all the way back to your outcomes, then you've got some kind of statement that you put in with those strategies, then your employees or your managers or whatever will be able to look back and go, okay, you know what? The way we were going to get there has become impossible because this roadblock has come up that we can't remove. So instead of just going, well, we're not going to do this, and we go look at something else, we go, well, this is still our goal. How do we reorient? And so you can bake in enough at different levels of altitude into the plan where people can keep looking back at where you're headed. That's why vision is so important with planning. And it's not just, hey, what are the tasks I need to do today? Mm-hmm. What's my work schedule look like for the week? Because without the vision being present, when things change, you just move on to the next fire, and you kind of forget about all that effort you put into building out where you're going to go. So you bake vision into it, and you want to continually not just revisit it to see what's changed and how you need to modify your path going forward, but you want to revisit it on a regular basis in order to keep the vision fresh in front of you, so you know still where you're headed.
I think to a certain point you have to treat it less like a wedding album and more like a grocery list. The wedding album, when you first get married, you look at it a lot, you show it to other people and whatnot. But as time goes on, for those of us in the room who have been married longer than some in the room have been alive probably, you don't look at it anymore. But when you do, it brings back good memories, and you remember, oh, this is what, when we got married, what we wanted to do. But a grocery list, you go into a house, and most of the time there's a list on the fridge or the wall. People keep writing what they need so that they can produce the meals their family wants to eat. And if we treated our business plans more like a grocery list, where we constantly kept in mind what the menu is and made sure we were getting the ingredients that we needed to get the menu, we would probably have better results. But we don't. We treat our business plans like, a wedding album. Or worse yet, we hire somebody to write our plan for us. And that's the one service we do not do anymore for people. We will help them put together the number. We will absolutely refuse to write a plan. If you can't write your own business plan, forget pretty and all the different things. If you can't write it, then you're not going to stick to it. It has to be, You can't drop your child off at daycare and expect him or her to turn out the way you want it to. You have to birth it and breathe it and breed it or whatever, beat it and punish it and discipline it and all. And we treat ours as Americans, it's like everything else we do. If you think about it, we're very consistent with that. We make resolutions, we don't keep them. We say mentally it's good to save for retirement, but we're grossly underfunded as a nation. So it's a pervasive problem, and I think we have to treat them more like grocery lists and less like the family wedding album revival where it just gathers dust after a while.
I still think it comes down to some kind of trust factor too. Like, do you really trust your plan? If you don't, I constantly see entrepreneurs making plans and not sticking to them, or looking for a new way to get things done. What's the next task management system, the next project management system, whatever, but then not executing it. It's like something else gets in the way of executing those tasks that are put there as the priorities. And I've only really met one person that was very, very good at it, Chris Austin. And he's a disciple of David Allen's Getting Things Done, like that GTD process. Any of you guys read that book, Getting Things Done? It's a process for getting things done. So he has like this, as new information comes in, how you process it, how you organize it, and assign resources to it to get it done. And Chris actually lives by that. So he trusts it, he's disciplined to live by it, and if it's not in his list of next actions, then it's not going to be worked on. And I think that's a big part of it too, is you have to find a system that you believe in, you trust, and that whenever you have things on that, if they're not on that list, they're not going to get worked on. It doesn't matter. It comes up, that thing has to be organized and filed and planned for. It's not something that disturbs this list of things we're supposed to be executing today and this week.
And if it seems like something that should become a priority, then if you've got a system in place where like maybe you've got a monthly or a quarterly time that you revisit an aspect of your plan, then you're able to find ways to integrate that and reprioritize, reallocate your resources going forward as well.
Right. Not just shooting from the hip of, I think this one's pretty important, so I'm going to derail these other things that I'm working on to work on this one. It has to be integrated into the overall plan also. All right. Anything else? I think we need to revisit this and kind of go at it from a case study. I think that would help everyone if we actually saw, here's a business, here's a concept, whatever, and here's how let's go ahead and brainstorm on where we want it to look like and where we want it to be, back up into those strategic plans, those tasks, resources, how to create the whole thing and execute it. So maybe we do that at the next meeting.
Yeah, just in passing, I took down some notes of the phrase that you said, mining and mapping tools. Is that software, or are there specific things that you had in mind when you made that?
Mind mapping.
Mind.
Yeah.
MindMeister is a good one that's online. Real easy to use, collaborative, different colors, different shapes. If you haven't used a mind mapping application, that technology, not technology, but the concept of mind mapping has been around since the 60s. And it's a more of an open form way of brainstorming. So what happens is, like traditional brainstorming, maybe you're writing like a outline. Okay, here's the things we're talking about right now, and here's like a heading, and then you're talking under it. And that type of planning is a little restrictive because you don't allow people to get outside of that box. Everybody's focused on that box. Mind mapping lets you quickly throw out ideas and they just go wherever. And no one's confined by the organization of it. They're just all equal level, boom, 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 thrown out on the screen. And then you can drag them around after the fact to organize them, which is really cool.
What?
Mind mapping.
And what was that? You said dragging around. Is that software?
MindMeister.
Meister, not master.
Meister.
Meister.
There's also Mindomo.
MindJet.
Mindjet.
Yeah, there's several of them that are very good. And then I still haven't seen anything that beats Google Drive, Google Docs, spreadsheets, presentations for collaboration. Real-time document collaboration is just Once you see it in action, it's unbelievable. You have 10 people working on a Google Drive document, and you see all the different colored cursors on the screen. Everybody's typing in something differently at the same time. It's pretty impressive. Then you have a revision history on it. You can go back and look at the previous revision if somebody made edits while you weren't online or something. Very cool. And the spreadsheets are amazing. The presentation software that they have with it's amazing. Now they have lots of other add-ins, so you can add in a MindMeister. So you could have a folder where you're working on a project, and you can share that folder with a small team. In that folder, you could have documents, mind maps, drawings, presentations, spreadsheets, and they're all collaborative components.
Now, is that Google Drive?
Google Drive that does that.
Yeah, and if you've got a Gmail account, then if you have a Gmail account, then you've got Google Drive, you just haven't accessed it yet.
Thank you.
Works great. Any other questions? Comments? Suggestions? All right. Well, thank you very much for being here. This has been a great meeting about planning and just strategic planning. Let's follow up with this with another meeting. I want to thank our sponsors again. Everybody's been great. Pershing Yoakley and Associates, Ludica Neely Group, Robinson IP Law, Fair Mechanics, Schnerd, Neighborhood Nerds. They're all wonderful sponsors. We really appreciate what they do for us. Be sure to check out the website, eokhq.com, for upcoming events. We have a pub night tomorrow night at Aubrey's down on Paper Mill, so make sure to attend that. It's a great thing to do. Everybody that shows up, a lot of smart people in one room. You can ask lots of questions, get lots of answers, and you get to drink beer at the same time, so it's a good time. And we have our next meeting will be a month from now. We're doing these the second Wednesday of every month, or is it the first Wednesday of every month? What is today? Second Wednesday of every month is when we do these the EOK Lunch-N-Learns. So be sure to check the schedule for that. And follow us on Twitter at EOK Town. Thanks.